Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thread to Threshold. I'm your host, Phil Rice. Welcome to the show on this 24th of June, 2020. And today I've got a wonderful guest. I've got Mr. Matt Andrews and ManTarA. And to expand a little bit on this, I'm going to read a short paragraph from his website. And this is more in regards to ManTarA. ManTarA's mission is to bring transformation through expansion to all who feel drawn to this experience. Expansion is a very simple process of opening up and moving beyond what has kept us limited, being open to the possibility that we are far more inherently powerful and capable than we have been led to believe, expanding beyond our limiting thoughts and beliefs of ourselves and how we relate to that which surrounds us. So that's a short paragraph from the website, I should say. And I'm going to bring Matt and ManTarA in, and I'm going to let them sort of elaborate a little bit on here, because some of you might be unsure about what I'm saying here. So here we go. I'll bring them in.
Hey, here I am.
Hey, Matt.
By the magic of television. I'm well. Hey, thanks for having me, Phil. This is awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on. And I just wanted to say to everyone that prior to connecting with Matt, I didn't really have a lot of an understanding about the conversation of channeling, and I have been sort of put off a little bit by it in the past. But what I discovered was when I connected with Matt, I connected with a really grounded, down-to-earth brother who has some great wisdom to share, and I enjoy tuning in. And, for me, it's always about the content of the message. And I really enjoy what Matt has to share. And, I'm sure that many people watching this may have some preconceived or already sort of entrenched understandings about channeling. But I've asked Matt to come on today, and we're just going to have a freestyle jam on what his understanding and his experience with channeling is. And so, Matt, once again, thank you so much for coming on. And please, if you'd like to share a little bit about, your adventure of how you got here, or, anything you think is pertinent to sort of start things off.
Sure. Thanks, Phil. It's awesome to be here, and it's awesome to help you and your listeners and myself, really, to explore this topic a little bit deeper, because that's the joy of channeling, is that you say stuff that you might not already believe that you know. You already know it, right? Because who are we channeling other than ourselves? What else is there in this universe other than us? If we come back to, and I know that's a big topic, come back to unity consciousness. Why not start at the top and we'll work backwards, eh? So we'll start with unity consciousness and work backwards. So, we understand that ourselves, our little self is an illusion, which is quite delusional. And yet we get a little bit caught up in this idea that if I'm channeling, then it's some other being. We got a little echo come from somewhere, which is interesting, which we haven't had on the call up until now. How's that feeding back, Phil?
Hang on, I'll just flick that off there. There you go. Try that.
Right. Awesome. That was it. You got it. Maybe. But anyway, so the point is that channeling is nothing more than just basically tapping into your own wisdom and speaking it beyond what your conscious mind already believes that you know. So you basically speak from your heart. That's all channeling is, in my opinion. I know other people have ideas and definitions of channeling that you have to basically have connected with an external authority or an external energy or an external entity and allow them to speak through your apparatus. And I'm not poo-pooing that entirely, but it just comes down to what do you define yourself as being, and do you see these other entities as separate to you? Ultimately, most of what I do as a channel is very, very subtle in terms of the experience I have. For me, it's almost like I'm just a little bit drunk and I'm just speaking without thinking. Something I used to get into trouble with as a kid, of course, we all do, right? A lot of kids speak without thinking and tell the truth as it is, out of the mouth of babes. The true word has been spoken, and then you get told, not to upset people, to be very careful about what you say, and to try and monitor it and try and work out what can be received by the other from your own intellectualization, right? So now you're trying to intellectually read another person and then moderate what you speak so that you only say stuff that doesn't upset them. That's what we're supposed to do in society. But that's very limiting, right? Because how much does your intellect really able to read what another person needs to hear? Not what they want to hear, but what do they need to hear? So when you channel, or the way I channel anyway, is I just hold an intention that I'm willing to speak whatever the other person will benefit from. And that's it, full stop.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's a wonderful overview. And thank you for sharing that, because I know that some people out there, like I said, will have some already sort of, conceptions of what this topic is about. And, and I'm curious, brother, like I know that before, you decided to step into this role sort of as full time, you were very much a nuts and bolts guy. And I'd love to just a little bit of a history of sort of where you started before you jumped into this, providing these services.
Yeah, sure. So immediately before I did this full time, I was working as a builder, domestic builder, doing renovations here in New Zealand. Before that, I worked in the film industry. I was a lighting tech. I worked on The Hobbit. I worked on Avatar. I worked on King Kong. I worked on a lot of big films and a lot of little films. Before that, I was a mechanical engineer, professional engineer, 4 years training at Sydney University, honours degree in mechanical engineering.
Wow.
So I've got a very left brain. I'm very, driven to be intellectually quite sharp from a young age. Grew up dyslexic, well, still am dyslexic. You don't get over that, but you kind of do get over it. But basically, my success in life in the external field has always come from a deep, deep feeling that I'm not good enough. Right? Grew up not feeling good enough. Grew up feeling that I didn't fit in society. Always struggled to feel at home here on this planet. And not so much on the planet, but in society, I should say. I always felt at home on the planet. I think I've been involved in this planet for a long time, but society has never felt very supportive to me. I've never felt fully accepted by society. I've always, owned the title of weird, and until recently being 4 or 5 years, never really felt that weird was a good thing to be, because it felt dangerous. So, became a master people pleaser, a chameleon, and very, very good at winning appreciation through my hard work and my success in doing anything that I put my hand to. So very hardworking, owned that as a big plus in my regard. Very kind and very thoughtful in how I interacted with people. Very, very keen not to upset people. So, and I was good at it, very, very good at doing that. But at a cost, right? I wasn't being authentic. I wasn't allowed to really own who I was, and I didn't feel acceptable as myself because I wasn't accepting myself. So from that, I'm hands up, I'm still recovering from that. I'm still working through that. I'm still a recovering people pleaser, and still, by default, will abdicate my own sovereignty and my own deeper knowing to not upset people in general life. Here, when I'm working as a facilitator, it's different because I've got very strong boundaries around, or very strong intentions around what I'm here to do. And when I accept the role as a facilitator, as a channel, I give myself full permission to speak beyond my beliefs and my indoctrinated patterns of people pleasing and trying to stay on the right side and not to upset people and not to trigger their emotional dis-ease, you might say. So that's been incredibly liberating. And through the process of me working as a facilitator, I've grown a lot as a person, which might go backwards to what a lot of people think you need to do. A lot of people think you need to perfect yourself as a person so that then you can become a facilitator. I did it the other way around. I became a facilitator as a broken person and have healed myself through the process. And I want to put that out there for everyone who is holding out of helping other people till they think they're good enough to do it, because the fastest way to get, to feel strong about yourself and confident about yourself is to help other people. And we teach best what we are still learning ourselves.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, brother. Because we've talked off camera, off air as well on these topics as well for my own
Mm-hmm.
journey.
Mm-hmm.
And the most growth I've had is when I've had the courage to put myself out there on a whim and just go, and then just
Yep.
sort of, and then just wait for the response. And I've actually had great success with getting clients that way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily looking for clients. I'm just sharing the thing, and then I get surprised with, I know the universe rewards courage. I've felt that
Mm-hmm.
firsthand, and that step. But becoming that authentic person, like you said, waiting for everything or get for all your ducks to get in a row, is pretty hilarious.
It is
And
pretty hilarious.
you
Ducks are
know,
hard to train. They never stand still. They're hopeless.
it's funny because our neighbors, like, we get heaps of ducks where I live, and I was walking past. I was going for my morning walk, and because I'm still trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing and all this, and what do you know? There's like with the neighbor feeds the ducks, and so there's like 20 or 30 ducks on this lawn, and they're all following the sun, or they're just out of the sun at the hedge, and they were literally in a row.
In a row. Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, back to what you were saying, this idea of like, I might be stumbling, but I'm stumbling in the right direction, and so the stumbles, I'm kind of stumbling a little less and making more progress. But I have to say that you like you said, just staying, inside, or just hiding away, it hasn't produced any results so far. Things don't show up. You have to put it out there. It's like, it's waiting for you. I use the analogy of you're at a dance and you're one of the wallflowers, and the universe is holding its hand out and it's shaking its tush. And it's like, come on, man, you want to party? And it's like, you just got to kind of meet it halfway. But
well, you might be judged. Yeah. Someone else, one of the other wallflowers might judge you as not dancing correctly, right? That's it. That's what holds us back. This fear that someone else is going to judge us as not doing it right. Oh, your channeling's not right. Oh, the way you lead meditation's not good. Oh, you do Reiki like that. Oh, that's not the proper way to do Reiki, right?
Yeah.
There's an infinite number of ways that you can be judged in what you choose to do, and if you're trying to avoid that, you're effed, right? You'll never start if you're trying to avoid judgment. So we just have to jump in, lock, stock, and barrel, warts and all, and allow other people to judge us.
And I have to say that, getting over that and not, I found that the only way I've learned to take shots is to take shots. Like, you kind of have to take the shots to learn how to take the shot, so to speak. And
well, you have to take a shot and then not die, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't die. Look at that. Not this time anyway. And there's good reason why we're scared of being judged, because we've been judged in the past, and it has been followed up with sentencing and then followed up with punishment. And some of those punishments were pretty severe, right?
Yeah.
And we've been judged for doing things that were relatively innocuous, basically just being ourselves, speaking our truth. That got us into a shit ton of trouble in other lifetimes. So there's a reason that we carry this fear. The fear is not stupid. A lot of people say, "Oh, I'm so stupid, I can't get over this fear." And I go, "Well, you've got to realize the fear is very, very valid. When you look at your past, but if you come into right now, is that fear still so valid? That's the point, because the fear doesn't understand, and your mind doesn't understand. Your mind doesn't understand that there's stuff that's arising from within you that makes you go, ah! And your stomach contracts and you get the shivers up your back and all the rest of it is stuff from past lifetime, and that times have changed since then. So we need to be willing to accept that there's a process, and we're going to feel these fear-based responses, as part of our progression forwards, and not to make ourselves wrong for that, not to degrade our, it's no point beating ourselves up for feeling fearful, right? That doesn't help. So we have to accept that there's a lot of fear. And, I've told stories about how fearful I was before I did my first telesummit interview, right, to the point that I threw up in the shower right before it happened, right, half an hour before it happened, because my first telesummit interview happened at 10 a.m. in the morning in Central American's time zone, right? So it was 3 a.m. here. I was due to get on the call. So at 2 a.m. I was standing in the shower trying to pull myself together after not sleeping at all, of course, because it was so important for me, right? If this didn't work, I was back to building again on Monday, and it was kind of like, oh my God, right? So this has got to work. This has got to work. And yet at the same time, I was just feeling like there's no way this is going to work. There's no way that they're going to accept some little Kiwi boy who's really got no foundation in what he does, and all of a sudden, accept me as a quote unquote healer. I felt such a fraud showing up and doing this interview. And yet, you know, I sold 270 packages of my sessions and MP3s over the couple of weeks after that interview. I had a couple of replays and whatnot, but I never went back to work. I never put my apron back on. Well,
Wow.
I've done a few jobs here in the house, right? I've done my own renovation, but I've never had to work in another job to support my family, right? So, but I was shit scared, right? Really, really scared, to the point that I actually threw up with the anxiety in the shower right before I got on the call. And I was kind of like, oh God, this is messy. And I was just shaking like a leaf when I got on that call. And yet I was just talking to someone who was on that call, who listened to that call just yesterday. And she said that it's still one of the best things she ever heard was the call I delivered, the interview I delivered. And I was just scared out of my little wits.
That's, you know, I have some other experiences similar, but one I will relay is that the first time I held a concert for my guitar students was at a church of all things, and we had some music that was lined up that was probably going to be questionable by the people who were providing the venue and that, but that wasn't part of the reason why. But this is the first time I was putting myself up on show. I mean, I've been a performing musician and all the rest of it for a while, but you know, when you're, you know, working with the kids and you've got a band and all this, and the band wasn't quite up to scratch, and for whatever reason, I was just, you know, this whole process was was filled with so much anxiety. And when the night came, you know, I'm in the bathroom, you know, because I'm emceeing, I'm playing, I'm hosting it, and running the show and just everything. I'm the guy, right? And I've got maybe about, you know, 100 odd kids performing, and it was a big thing. And there was so much going wrong, so much went right. But yeah, I just like, you know, I'm looking in the mirror in the bathroom just before the clock hits the hour or whatever. And I'm like going, oh man. And then I sucked it up and I went out and did it with my legs shaking a little bit, my voice quivering, but I just powered through it. And it was like, oh, that wasn't too bad. And people were like, man, bro, you were the man. And I have to say that, you know, I'm so grateful for all the people that, you know, in this particular arena as well, that I've reached out to, especially with these interviews, that have been so supportive, because they recognize from their own experience how challenging this can be. But ultimately, you're really the only one that can take you over the threshold, so to speak, and, you know, break the seal. And, you know, it doesn't mean the second time is going to be any easier. Well, it will be a bit easier, but it's
usually a bit easier because you've got a little bit of evidence to say that, well, I survived it last time.
Yeah.
But generally just as much goes wrong, and you feel just as fearful. But you just accept that a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's it. And, you know, like I said, you know, with moving into, you know, it's funny because, you know, I've come from a pretty successful background as a music teacher, and I worked in corporate with trucks and diggers and things like that. And I worked my way up through a company, and got burnt out in both jobs after about 12 or 13 years. And, and, you know, and then I'm talking to you, you know, you're ex, you know, engineer and things. Well, you know, still engineer of sorts and that. And, you know, some people be like, oh, why would you give up what you were doing? You know, you know, you've got so much to give, and, you know, and all this, you know, for me, it was like, why would you not want to keep working with the kids and things like that? And I'm not saying that I don't want to work with kids or anything, but, you know, I just felt in my heart that there was just something else sort of tapping me on the shoulder. And if I didn't honor that, like, I dragged the guitar teaching out for quite a while, and I tried to make it work for me. And I just couldn't. I tried so hard. But, you know, that this other thing just wouldn't let me go, and I'm still kind of piecing it together. But I know that I sleep better because I'm making attempts to sort of understand and work with it, whereas I wasn't really doing that before.
No.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing better than a successful career to keep us distracted from what's really important to us. Because society honors success in that way. It honors financial success. It honors the fame that comes with that, and the status. Right, the status that you own the title of success. Successful is a mighty status to own on this planet, and so when we have that level of success, it's very hard to give it up and come back to, actually, I just want to be real, because that success is pinned to something that I've shoehorned myself into to fit into the way society wants success. And we're here to create a new world now. We're here to create a new paradigm where success is basically inherent happiness, right? It's just being ourselves. It's stepping back into our beingness and not losing our authority or our sovereignty in order to follow the rules and to achieve success in that way of whatever that business or that relationship or that looks like.
And part of this journey for me has been discovering a love of knowledge as well. And that's been so empowering because I realized that I had so many gaps. I was so distracted by so many things. I would considered myself to be a kind person as well prior to these last few years, but I'm most certainly more of a compassionate person. I used to be very moody. In fact, I could be a grade A-hole as well. And so this has been a wonderfully humbling experience for me to reflect. And it's taken a long time. And I don't think you can put anyway, I just want to say that I don't think you can put a time limit on how long it takes, and there's no end to it. And, but just making myself a little vulnerable by pressing the live button on Facebook and just sharing things and just speaking, and then people giving feedback and that, I've been quite surprised just how supportive people have been, because I'm just being real. And I think people are craving for realness right now, man.
Definitely.
People are tired of celebrities and their virtue signaling and and all the crap from the media and just the social engineering that's just so obvious. It's it's not even hidden anymore. It's well, it's always kind of been hidden in plain sight, but it's not exactly covert anymore. And this idea
it can't
of
be covert anymore because everyone's vibration has risen to the point where they can see through it, right? The blinkers are coming off energetically. So a lot of the old school manipulation just doesn't work today. So people are seeing through that BS straight away. And you're right. Authenticity is a real commodity today. It's what people crave because they're not getting it. They used to think they were getting it with all sorts of things out there in the world. People flock to reality TV, for example, because they thought it was real. And they loved that. Right? When reality TV first hit the market 15 years ago, or whenever that was, people loved it because they were actually not just seeing actors now, they were seeing real people, or what they thought were real people anyway. Yeah. Of course they are real people. Everyone's a real person. But we know now, as soon as you turn on a reality TV show now, you're looking and go, oh my God, how staged, right? But when it first hit the market, everyone was going, oh my God, we're watching people being real. And they loved it. They lapped it up, right? It was a huge craze, People are seeing through it now, right? What's next? Where do we go? And I think, televised entertainment is potentially coming to a bit of an end in some ways, at least not going to fulfill, it's not going to be playing such a big role in our society moving forward, in my opinion. That's my opinion. That's a bit of a prediction. I might be proved wrong there. But I'm willing to say it, that I think people are moving beyond needing that, and true, real authenticity where they can feel the heart of someone sharing with them is the real currency today, and very much a commodity, not to be quote unquote sold, but really that gives people influence in this world. And influence is nothing to be shunned, right? I think it's time for heart-centered people to regain some influence on this planet, because we haven't had much influence for a long time, and we've let people with forceful power, money basically, and other ways of manipulating society have all of the influence. And these celebrities have had all of the influence, who are just basically puppets of the people pulling their strings and supplying them dollars. And that's got to change, right? It is changing. It is changing right now.
Yeah, and I'm when I talk to people, and especially if I haven't talked to them for a while, I've been just soaking up all this knowledge, which is eventually percolated and become an understanding, which I feel very confident about sharing. And then obviously, in a sense, I'm expressing it as wisdom for them. I'm not claiming that I'm right. I'm just sharing things, and people are finding great value in it. And they're going, man, this is some good shit, bro. How did you get like this? And I said, bro, I just read lots, and I contemplate on it. And, and I'm connecting, I'm aligning myself and finding the things about myself that I want to work on, and making steps, however small they are, towards that. And I think wisdom is the new sexy, and it's certainly on the rise. Well, I'm witnessing a little bit more of that, but there's still very much a culture of shiny distraction out there that we're up against, in a sense. And the stuff that we see. I mean, I don't know. I have a Netflix account that I can access, and man, that stuff's getting dark, man. Like they're exposing the subconscious to all kinds of symbols. Like they're not, it's crazy. I know that they're also exposing people to information, because we know that truth is stranger than fiction, or whatever it is, and they're delivering a lot of the information to help get society ready for some information, and we're still kind of like this situation we're in at the moment is I find it's so hard to kind of put a finger on where it's going, because it's so changeable, and so I've just kind of backed off. It's just overwhelming, the information available, and so much plausible deniability on every angle, and so kind of have to step back. But I found a lot of confidence and purpose in just like I said, just pressing the go button and just speaking and just sharing and being vulnerable and telling people, look, man, I got struggles, and if you got struggles and you need someone to talk to, just hit up and we'll just go from there,
Awesome. What I wanted to say, Phil, is what's really going to serve you and the people you serve is to recognize that not everyone can distill information the way that you can. Yeah. What you find is quite easy, because you've got a natural alignment and a good bullshit meter, and you can basically feel into what you're reading, whether it's applicable or not to you, and thus to the people who are aligned with you. Not a lot of people can do. A lot of people, if they were to read the amount of wisdom, the amount of information that you read, would get terribly confused, confluxed, and overwhelmed, and wouldn't be able to make heads or tails or produce wisdom from it. And I'm telling you that because for all of us, anyone who's listening to this, what we particularly find easy is our superpower, and that's what we should be leading with in the world, right? That's our gift to the world. And just because we find it easy doesn't mean that everyone else does. In fact, most people don't. And it's very hard for us to understand that other people can't just read the information and get the wisdom that we can get from it, or in your example, right? Or, some people are just good at doing other things, and they just assume that because it's easy, everyone must be able to do it, and therefore it's not very valuable. And that's the big downfall. We don't value what we find easy, because we think we've been trained to believe that we should only really get paid for suffering. We should only really get paid for our sweat. We should only really get paid for our effort, right? Our sacrifice. We get paid based on the sacrifice. The whole idea of having a job is you sacrifice yourself in order to exchange that sacrifice, your time doing stuff that you don't really want to do, for money that you can then use to survive, and perhaps if you're lucky to have some good times as well. So, but we're moving out of that now. And what I want to offer out for everyone is to understand that what you find easy is exactly what you should be getting paid well to do in some way, right? In some way. And so for you, it's just become very, very obvious that you are good at taking in information from various sources and distilling the wisdom out of it and delivering it to the people who align with you, at least. Obviously, your wisdom is not going to meet everyone's needs, because a lot of people would take that exact same amount of wisdom, exact same amount of information, and distill different wisdom from it based on their alignment. But, we all have tribes of people who align with us, and our job is to serve them and not worry about the others, right? Because you can't. Like, I know with what I do is particularly, it's probably 0.5% of the population could understand what I do, right? And that's okay, because 0.5% of 7 billion is still a frig load of people, right? I've still got more than I can ever possibly serve. But the point is not to dilute what I do to try and get some sort of mass acceptance of what I do, because that's not going to serve the people who I'm really here to serve. I need to be bold, and I need to really lead with what I'm good at and what I truly align with, and serve the people that I can serve to my best ability, and to be willing to be ostracized, judged, ridiculed by the people who don't understand.
Man, I've seen some of the comments and stuff that you've got, brother, and you must have a good thick skin by now. And you've just dropped some serious gems with that, because you're absolutely right. This idea of stuff that we, I just love going through the books. I can read a book this thick, and I might get one thing out of it that's just, and for me, that is totally worth my while, because there's also a lot of context that builds up. It's not just one line on a page, but it's a context. It's an understanding that comes. And, this thing about, distilling wisdom from information. I mean, I've had to sort of rediscover this for myself, that this was something I was interested in, because before I just really wanted to play rock and roll and get wasted. I mean, that's just the bottom line, baby. I mean, that's just how it was. And that was the crew I was rolling with to an extent too. We just loved to party and go out and stuff.
Nothing wrong with that, Phil. That's given you a great
back then.
yeah, that's given you a great understanding of that mentality and that way of dealing with the world, which is it's not an illegitimate way of dealing with the world, because there's a lot of joy in doing pleasurable things. It's not a wrongness. It builds a bit more wisdom in experience. But it comes a time when the soul gets hungry for something a bit deeper, a bit more juicy than just the pleasures of the flesh, so to speak.
Yeah, and and it's been so great, because I managed to get those sort of boyhood sort of dreams and fantasies out of my way, early on, and go, this has been taken me this far. But yeah, this thing about finding things that are easy. I mean, it's probably actually not that hard to find our calling, in a sense, and I've noticed too that throughout my life there's been seasons of callings, so to speak. I've been led to this, and then I got led to that, and then now here I am.
Purpose is not chiseled in stone and set forever, right? Our purpose is ever evolving. Our purpose is just to express ourselves in expansive ways. That's all, right? Just to be the best version of ourselves in the moment. And it keeps growing, right? I don't believe that I'll be potentially channeling ManTarA for the rest of my life, or maybe I will be, but it potentially won't be my headline, right? And I've even seen how much that's changed just in 5 years. When I started 5 years ago, when someone did a 60-minute session with me, it was 5 minutes or 10 minutes of talk at the front about what their intentions were and what their struggles are, then 45 minutes of light language, or even 50 minutes of light language, and then just a 5-minute wrap up at the end. Now, when someone does a 60-minute session with me, we talk for 40 minutes. We do 15 minutes of light language and wrap it up, right? And they get more from it. The point is, I'm owning my ability to facilitate transformation beyond just the woo-woo-ness of channeling light language. And that's been important, right? That's important for me, and it's important for my clients, because I'm not here just to, quote unquote, fix them with the light language, which is, I used to think, because the light language is so powerful, the light language I do is particularly powerful. I'm not saying that from a place of ego. It just freaking is, right? It just shakes people out of their crap and facilitates opportunities for big change. But people can't take those opportunities for big change unless they're kind of relaxed into the space. And so that's what having a real conversation with a real person like Matt is, right? And I can still be speaking wisdom, but I'm speaking it from a very easily identifiable space, right? Because I'm putting context to it in real life situation, real life alignment, real life experience. And that's where transformation happens. It happens through a process of relaxation. As you say, our place of genius is easy, and it should be easy to find, but it's not so easy to accept generally, right? That I'm allowed to get paid for doing what I find easy, and other people are going to value what I find easy. That's the harder bit of it.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you say about the relaxation thing too, because when we're all sort of tense and stressed out and trying hard and trying to force things, and that we're not in our best place of operation for the most part. Although sometimes those those gems do pop out when there's a bit of pressure, obviously. But what I found is, especially with my Reiki work straight from the beginning, or my energy healing, I started off with energy healing. I went for Reiki because it was just a comfortable shoe-in for me, and there's a lot of research behind it, so it just made sense to me at the time. Is that teaching people, taking them through relaxation, because the real healing is going to take place when you're able to actually fully relax, and I think for a lot of things too, people have taken great purchase from the relaxation techniques, because I teach them how to do that too. But it's also, like you said, we end up speaking so much that the energy healing's happening anyway. And when I read back about the people who've been doing this for hundreds, thousands of years, whatever, generally speaking, you could just be sitting in the room with one of the healers and you could have the same kind of experience. You don't have to get on the table. You don't, you're basking. And I'm not trying to, you know what I'm saying here. I'm not trying to pump myself up or anything here. But when you start moving into that authentic space, you just kind of feel something else going on, and people just like it. Like I was talking to a friend this morning who's got some serious stuff going on in her life, we chatted for about 2 hours, and afterwards, man, she was bouncing. And for me, that just lifted me up so much, you know, and she gave me some great stuff as well. And this conversation thing it's really powerful, because you can turn things around. And this is not to say that the energy healing's not effective either, because it is, but and that's, I think, why I like that word holistic, because it encompasses far more than just simply intellectual conversation, sharing concepts, or doing the Reiki session. It's like a whole, you kind of work with the person.
We don't need to division it. We don't need to compartmentalize it, right? It's our beingness that's valuable.
Yeah, and I've just found that, you know, dropping the protocols so much, and just getting into that intuitive flow is where I've noticed some real amazing transformation happen within, some of my friends and clients and things like that. But I tell you, man, surrendering has been a real thing for me, because I sometimes feel like I have to do something and produce some kind of tangible, tactile result or something like that. But anyway,
it's hard to measure, right? And the point is, you are producing real results, but it's just very hard for us to measure it with the current metrics we have available to us via our senses. So, and it's the same with our own process, right? I deal with a lot of people who come to me and say, I'm going backwards. I was so calm and peaceful not so long ago, and now it's all turned to mush and whatever. It's like, you're still going forward, bro. It's like, you're still doing it, sister. I know it's not egoically satisfying at the moment, because you don't feel functional, you don't feel calm, you don't feel balanced, but you're in the process, relax. You can't measure the fact that you're still going forward, because you're using these metrics based on how comfortable your life is to prove that you're doing it right, and they're just not valid metrics to use for spiritual ascension.
Right. And the social yardsticks that we've become so familiar with, that you have to throw them out, and you're almost having to sort of not necessarily build your own. You're not comparing yourself so much. It's good to reflect back, obviously, to see where you've come from in that. But the future isn't going to be, I think, because the future is very much about uniqueness, individuality. It's the wonderful nature of, what am I looking for? Diversity that we have outside of cultures, but including cultures as well. And it's actually really exciting, because we're kind of being especially at this time in history where we find ourselves right now. It's like it's almost forcing. It's almost like nature, in a sense, is forcing a kind of transformation to happen in a lot of people. And it's not very comfortable. And so, I'd love to just talk for you to talk to that, if you could, please.
Break it down for me again. What am I talking about? I agree with everything you just said, but then when you said just talk to more of that, I went, talk to more of what? Well, I can talk to this, but I'll start with this point, and you just keep butting in if I lose track.
All good,
but yes, we are not being forced by nature to transform right now, but we're definitely being invited to transform right now. There's a portal of energy opening up, which has naturally been coming for a long time, right? As the Earth goes through her 25,000 year cycle around the galaxy, we go through periods where darkness really has an advantage on the plane, and when light has an advantage on the plane. Darkness and light, neither team is right or wrong in God's eyes. Of course, those of us like you and me who align with the light like to think that light's the right team and darkness is the wrong team, but that's not necessarily the truth, right? It's just our opinion. I don't know, that's a touchy subject for a lot of people, but for whatever reason, we just decided to go there. But the point is that we have been through a period of darkness for quite some time on this plane. And so many of us who align with the light have felt like we're on the losing team, and we're carrying a lot of density. And society itself is carrying a lot of the repercussions or the residues of having a dark authoritarian, forceful rule of power over the planet for quite some time. And now, as we're naturally coming back into a period where light has the advantage on the playing field, that all of those dark agendas are being exposed and are rising to the surface, because they just can't stay comfortably hidden. It's energy mechanics, right? It's just vibration. As the vibration lifts, dense vibrations can't stay hidden anymore. They become too discordant, right? And they basically rise to the surface to be released, right? Because they're just vibrating at a place that knocks them out of their hiding place. So that is bringing up a lot of uncomfortable conditions for a lot of people, which is very, very healing and transformative, but not very comfortable. So it's exciting, and also a little bit scary. Actually, it's a lot scary for most people, because we just really can't predict. I think Hamish pointed out, right, pretty uncertain for us at present, right, out here on the planet, because that's where it's at, right? It's like no one knows how this thing's unfolding right now. And at the moment, if you look out with our normal metrics for measuring our safety, it looks pretty bad, right? It looks pretty bad. It's very unpredictable. There's all sorts of potential agendas playing out. And how's this all going to unfold? None of us really know. God doesn't know how this is going to unfold. That's the excitement of this experiment called existence. Is it's basically God, us, divided up into infinite number of beings having an experience with each other, to keep redefining or exploring, or gaining wisdom as to who we are as an energy. God, right? God is just the conglomeration of us, in my opinion. That's my opinion. I know a lot of people might want to argue with that, and I'm happy for them to do so. And I know my definition will keep evolving over time too. That's not the absolute truth. It's not even my truth for any length of time. It's just my current understanding, as is the stuff about light and dark.
Yeah, and and I think that's really great that you bring that up, because my understanding of things continues to develop as well, and I must say, having this sort of open approach to the understanding being cultivated and just sort of naturally unfolding has been so freeing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sometimes we have to use certain forms and models to help us maneuver and navigate through the world, but having that kind of open relationship with things, and what we're going through right now is like I said, man, because I've done some pretty heavy research on all sorts of things, and and it hasn't really, if anything, right now it's like, I heard a great quote the other day from a commentator I like to follow, and he's basically saying, forget the headlines and just stick to doing what's right,
Mm-hmm.
and or what to do, but the distraction out there is prolific, and I think that's something I'd really like you to touch on too. Is like, what do you think some of the really important tools, or I don't know, like things that people can help themselves to move through this process of transformation, this process of uncertainty, even like what Hamish is saying, because it very much is uncertainty. I mean, I've got a lot of people in my life who've lost their jobs. We've got businesses closing down in my village up the road here, and all these things, and people aren't sure, and yeah. So anyway, I'd love you to talk about that.
Yeah. So I think the gift that's in this uncertain time is the reclamation of our sovereignty and our own internal safety, right? Being that our safety has to come from within us, because if we think that society is out there to keep us safe, we're mistaken. We've always been mistaken. Society, well, maybe not always, but at least for the last few thousand years, society has not been in place to keep us safe. Not in the way that we want to be kept safe anyway. They sure, they want to keep us alive because we keep paying our taxes while we're alive. But right, we keep playing our part, producing and consuming as a cog in the machine while we're alive. They want to keep us alive, but they don't necessarily want us to keep us prosperous. They don't particularly want to keep us joyful. They don't particularly want us to keep us, whole and complete as a being. So now is the time for us to really reclaim our personal responsibility for ourselves. And the biggest responsibility that we have is to choose whether we're happy or not, because society can't give that to us. I know we've been sold on this idea that when we're successful in society, then we'll get our happiness. But I think we've seen enough examples of that when that doesn't work, right? That people have climbed to the highest heights of societal success and then topped themselves or self-destructed through the complete dissolution that comes from knowing there's nothing more that you can do and you still don't have your happiness, right? There's no more money that you can get. There's still no more things to achieve, and yet you don't feel good in yourself. So then what? Most of us don't have that opportunity because we're always at some stage on the ladder where there's another rung to climb to, and we just hope that our happiness is going to be on that rung. And that has kept society on the game of climbing the ladder and doing what they're told for so long, but that's all starting to fall apart now. People, the ladder is basically disintegrating. The rails are falling off, and we're just left with a pile of rungs on the ground now. And right, as the analogy goes, it's like, how do I climb this thing now, right? So we're given the opportunity right now to come back into ourselves and to find our own peace and our own center and our own happiness that's dwelling within us all. Now, I know that sounds like peace, love, and mung beans and a concept that's beyond the reality. It's like, come on, mate, just get with it. I need to fucking feed my family. I need the money. I need a job and all of the rest of it. I know. And that's, that level of stress is what keeps us out of having the experience, the inner knowingness and that depth of relaxation that would allow us to be intuitively led into how we're going to feed our family and how we're going to orchestrate society and fitting in a purposeful way to achieve a level of prosperity that would count for more than our survival, but actually our thrival. So you asked for practical advice about what to do now. First and foremost, it's to have an understanding that shit's falling apart for a good reason, and don't make that wrong. So don't make the destruction wrong and fight against it, because what you fight against, you feed, right? So it's time to really come back to staying relaxed as possible in this situation. And that doesn't mean doing nothing. It doesn't mean surrendering into, oh, well, there's no point in trying anymore. But it means coming back and letting go of the stress response, because when your body's in stress and you're releasing that cortisol and all the rest of it, it just makes you stupid, right? Because it takes all of the blood out of your frontal cortex and makes you very reactive, right? You become a fight and flight machine. Your senses are heightened, your muscles are ready to fight or flight, and you're not doing a lot of cognating in a deep way, which isn't very helpful right now. And it does a whole lot of other things to your body. Like, I don't need to give a whole lecture on the stress response in the body, and in fact shuts down your digestion. It ruins your immunity for which is exactly what we don't want to have happen now. Because that's a lot of the narrative right now about why we should be stressed is that perhaps we're going to get this horrendous virus thing or whatever, and end up intubated on a not incubated, but we're all in incubation, but intubated in a hospital somewhere, right? And have our lungs destroyed by that machine. Not want to go down that conspiracy narrative.
But I feel you, bro.
So do what's required to help you relax. Now, for me, that's basically about breathing. One of the best ways you can let go of the stress response, one of the best first aid techniques you can use when you feel you start contracting into the stress of not knowing how, not knowing why, and not knowing what to do next, is to get your diaphragm engaged in your breathing, is actually to breathe nice and deep and perhaps use a bit of breath retention. So you breathe in for a count of 6, you hold your breath for maybe a count of 6, maybe a count of 4, whatever your capacity is, then you breathe out nice and slow, perhaps for a count of 8. You can change around those metrics, those times, but it's basically to breathe deep and slow and into your belly with an intention that you are relaxing yourself, right? Ultimately, the biggest power that we all have as humans is our intention, and we're not trained to use it. We're not trained to believe in it. In fact, when most of us hold an intention to do something, then we feel that we need to measure that it's getting done. We need to feel that we need to prove that our intention actually worked. And so we allow our doubts to play out in a whole heap of wanting to measure things. So, whenever we put our energy into appeasing the doubts by trying to measure whether we're making progress towards what we're intending, we're actually eroding our ability to have the intention manifest, right? Because we're feeding the doubts by trying to measure that it's actually working. And that's where most of us fall over, right? We intend to become more spiritual, and then we want to try and measure how we're becoming more spiritual. We want to use the metrics. Oh, I'm more peaceful. Oh, I'm more able to deal with my mother-in-law. Oh, you're right. And then we're measuring whether we're doing okay with that or not. And all of that is just feeding doubt that perhaps we're not becoming more spiritual. And what is spiritual anyway, other than, aligned with the spirit that we are? Trying to get back to practicalities, remember, Phil? So another great thing that I use is not just, is this breathing idea, but to do it consistently throughout the day. So for me, right, I quite often set the timer on my phone to go off every half an hour, not when I'm on calls like this, it just goes beep, right? Or I've got a little bells of mindfulness on my computer, on my browser there, on my Chrome browser. It basically, I can set it so it goes off every half an hour, every 15 minutes, every hour, whatever really suits me. Because there's no point making it there's no point, frustrating yourself and wanting to smash your computer. That's not a good use of resource. So I remember when I was using this technique when I was still building, right? I used to have my phone go off every half an hour to remind me to stop and take, here's my thing, 2 deep breaths, right? Just 2 deep breaths takes 30 seconds, and just to realign with who I am, right? No matter what's going on, just stop, take 2 deep breaths. And 3 days into it, you just want to smash your phone apart, right? You're up a ladder, about to knock a nail in, and your phone goes beep, and it's like, no, I don't have fucking time to stop and take 2 deep breaths now. It's like that joke, the Buddhist joke. Everyone should spend 20 minutes a day meditating, except for people who don't think they have enough time. They should spend 40 minutes a day meditating.
Yeah, beautiful.
Right? So, how much, if you stop every half an hour and say you're awake for 15 hours, and you stop every half an hour and take 2 deep breaths, how much of your day is that? It's 15 minutes. 15 minutes of your day, and you know how much different you will feel at the end if you actually manage to do it 30 times, which no one does, by the way. I don't even manage that, right? I'm awake 15 hours and I don't stop every half an hour and take 2 deep breaths. But if you did, it would only be 15 minutes of your day. But the difference it makes to how you finish that day and to how you progress through that day is astronomical. It's the best 15 minutes you could ever spend. Literally, right? As opposed to doing just 15 minutes meditation in the morning and then letting yourself go for the whole day without remembering anything about your intention again. You stop every half an hour and remember what you're intending to be on the planet and actually take 2 deep breaths to release the stress of just normal life. It's chalk and cheese. It's not easy, but it's not that hard either. It's not complicated, that's for sure.
No, and I think, not a lot of people realize the benefits because they don't give it. Yeah, it's too simple. Yeah, I mean, when I sort of say to people, look, there's a cumulative effect to meditation, and there's many ways of there's many paths up the mountain. I like to say, and like you said, the 50, if people haven't meditated before and they can get through 5 minutes a day, I would suggest even twice a day because, especially before, in the morning and before sleep, but even the afternoon and things like that. But, you find something that works for you and you stick with it for a given period of time, even a couple of weeks, man, and you will notice the difference.
Right? 21 days to establish a new habit.
That's it, man. And, the benefits, I remember when I first started meditating, I got found my way into it because I came across the heart math breathing. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but that was really lovely. And I love sharing that because that's an experience that's, quite unique for a lot of people to have. And it's very, very interesting. And
it's that very visceral, right? You actually feel it. It's working. Fuck, there's something in this. It's not just woo-woo talk.
Yeah. And it appealed to my linear kind of thinking patterns because it was obviously there was a bit of science behind it too and practicality. And so that kind of gave me permission to share it with people, I guess, internally. But, I did that for a while. I was like, you know what, even without doing the meditation, like the actual locating and breathing and the feeling, I was just sitting there and practicing the blank mind and then started exploring meditation. And then after, like 5 or 6 days, I'm like going, it feels great to do it. But, I just found myself becoming much less reactive to things is what I normally do. But hey, look, Matt, sorry to hear, but we're sort of coming to the top of the hour now, and what I wanted to do is just say to you, look, you've got a great website where people can check you out, and I'd love for you just to talk a little bit about your services. But if you wanted to sort of carry on a little bit of what we're just talking about, I'm just sort of tidying things up towards the end here.
Sure.
So if there's anything you wanted to finish off with, and that you wanted to share your details and things like that, and your services and any upcoming events. So please, time for a shameless plug, brother. Go for it.
Shameless plug. It's not my forte actually. Shameless plugs. Do
your best.
Do my best. Okay, so if you want to find some about me, it's scrolling across the bottom of the screen, right? It's www.mantara.nz. Just jump on there and get my free gift. That's a great place to start, right? It's called Stepping into Your Personal Power, and then you'll have an experience of what Matt does with light language, which is one of the tools that I use significantly in my practice still. I do have clients who aren't so much into the light language and just, we work in different ways. But light language is still quite dear to me because it helped me so much. It still does help me just in my own personal practice just to get out of my mind And we haven't really talked about what light language is. It's simply just basically energy heal. It's sound healing, basically, where I use my voice to make, which are basically crazy sounds, quite fast, rhythmic, and hypnotic. That almost like binaural beats. That's done in a very organic way with Matt's voice, and I'm in a channeled space, so I'm not really controlling what comes out of my mouth, and that just takes people into an assisted meditative space, right? It's like binaural beats. It basically just helps the brain rhythms align, and it's carrying a lot of intention, perhaps more than binaural beats, to actually work with the higher self of the person who's listening, and allow that higher self to have a little bit more influence in the field now that we've kind of facilitated a space where that can happen. It's almost like with the anaesthetist in an operating theatre. We don't wield the scalpel, but we put the patient in a space where the scalpel can be effectively used, because you can be in the operating theatre with the world's best heart surgeon and you need your heart fixed. If there's no anaesthetist there, there's no, you can lie there and say, oh, just do it, I won't move. I'm fucking desperate. Cut my heart open, cut my chest open, fix my heart. I won't move, honest. And the surgeon knows there's no scalpel going anywhere near your heart, right? Until the anaesthetist in the room. So and we don't put you to sleep, right? So don't think that we're going to anesthetize you with the light language, but that's kind of the role that we play. I don't, as a healer, mess in people's energy fields. I don't know enough about energy fields and people and the specifics, but what I do is I create the conditions where their higher self and their team of people, their team of beings, their team of helpers who've been with them for lifetimes can work more effectively in their energetic field by helping to get the client's ego out of the way. That's what I do. I help anesthetized egos. And I do that by chatting, like what we're doing now. I help people just relax into a bit of a space. And quite often people start, just when I'm talking, I rave a bit and people start yawning and sort of go, oh, I can't hear what you're saying. And it's kind of like, yeah, it's okay. You don't need to. I'm not actually giving you any intellectual information that you need to remember. I'm just weaving a space for you to have an experience. I do the same in the meditations that I lead, right? I can sometimes go into a very monotonous tone with my voice that basically puts people into a space, and next minute they say, I don't know what happened, but I've just come back. Where did we go? It's like, yeah, you don't need to know. And that's the point, right? We don't do it with our mind. Anyway, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm supposed to be shamelessly plugging what I do.
Yeah, come on, bro. I'm looking at your website, and I'm going to give you some prompts here. So if I go into...
My website's terrible, by the way. I did my website in 2014 on the cheap, on my own, and I've never got back to fix it because I've always just been too busy.
Yeah, no, I hear. I was going to say, I can't see that. Obviously, there's a lot of heart-centered facilitators are not necessarily are holding a lot of events at the moment because of the restrictions of travel and things like that. And I know that sometimes you do a bit of travel, and that have you got anything lined up in the distant future of retreats or otherwise?
Yeah, we've moved our retreats to next year now. So Vietnam in 2020, in May 2021, Thailand in June, early July, and September for Bali. So yeah, those will be happening. And it's kind of a bit of a combination because my wife and I are both yoga teachers as well. So that was my first love. That's how I sort of changed from. Well, it didn't change, but this was 25 years ago. It's kind of how I rescued myself from a bit of a destructive life path, kind of like your rock and roll life. I found yoga, which back in 1996, which really changed my trajectory. And I did a shitload of reading back then and read all the Vedas and the Upanishads and many commentaries on yoga stuff, which has given me a great depth or foundation to a lot of what I share now. Not that I verbatim can remember anything that I read back then, but that foundation comes through. In terms of what I really love doing, Phil, is helping facilitate or helping people who want to help other people. So I've got programs that can help you get more in touch with your gifts and abilities. And I've also got programs that can help you attract clients and work with clients that really align with you. Because what I recognize, one of the mistakes I made, one of the paths I went down that wasn't very pleasant when I first started was I headlined how good I was, how good my techniques were, and thus I attracted a lot of people to me who just wanted me to fix them based on the fact that my light language was so amazing. And while that was great for business for a while, it was really soul destroying in other ways, because I was working with people who I wasn't really aligned with, who I didn't really enjoy working with. And ultimately, they didn't get great results because they weren't really prepared to go through the process that I was really good at helping people go through, which is much more of an empowering process of actually changing themselves rather than just taking away their pain or their problems, right, with the magic of energy healing. Because we've always been, ManTarA and I have always been very, very passionate about empowering people to get beyond the need for quote unquote healing. That's not necessarily get beyond the benefit of getting help, because I don't think any of us ever get beyond that benefit. All of us need help at some stage. It's not about becoming completely self-reliant, but it's about empowering ourselves that we don't need someone else to save us. I was very careful not to build a following of people who just become reliant on me or codependent on me. And at first, there was a mismatch between my marketing and bringing in people who wanted the light language, but were also keen on developing a codependent relationship with me. And I was sort of like pushing them away and then saying, yeah, but I need your money. Push them away. No, I don't want you to I need your money. Right. And that wasn't working. So I had to sort of burn that whole business down and relaunch myself as someone who spoke directly to the people who I like to work with, who are people who are willing to take responsibility for their transformation and their growth and their empowerment journey. And then we can, quote unquote, do the healing with them, right? We can help heal and help remove the obstacles that are keeping in their way, but it's all happening from a desire for them to step into their greatest version of themselves, rather than from a desire to just be free of what they don't like, which is a massive difference. So I help other people do that as well. I help other facilitators or people who are just starting out really get their messaging a lot more clear and really allow their own heart's light to radiate out through their messaging and to attract their best clients to them so that they can enjoy that. So I've got this thing called the Bright Light Client Attraction Process, which isn't on my website, but if you're interested in that, just reach out to me and I'll send you some information on it. I am about to build, it's been on my list to do for about 3 months, a sales page for that. But generally, if I'm very generous with my time, and if you want to riff on that, I'm happy to set up a 45-minute call with anyone who feels that they're in that sort of space where they're working with clients. And it's not just about being an energy worker, it's about anyone who's a heart-centered service provider. You might be a VA, you might be an editor, you might be, I don't know, pick something. I'm working with some nurses who help prevent falls in elderly, right? I'm working with a beauty technician who wants to really go a lot deeper into helping people find their inner beauty while still doing beauty treatments, still doing a facial, still doing a massage, and yet talking in a way and holding a space for people to get beyond the surface stuff, right? But doing the surface stuff, right? So yeah, she's amazing, right? And so I'm right into getting behind helping those people really succeed at doing that, both with, because most people who are heart-centered like that, Phil, we carry a lot of resistance to actually stepping out and being seen. We hold a lot of resistance to actually being successful because of what we've experienced in deep past, right? Other lifetimes where we've been persecuted for being ourselves. And so it feels scary to step beyond the normals of what society expects from us and to launch ourselves into being very vulnerable in our authenticity and transparency out there in the marketplace. And I've had to step through it, and it's my joy to help others to step through it as well.
And I just want to say that I had a 45-minute clarity call with you, Matt, and it did run over time, and I'm thankful for just the whole experience because it
runs over time.
The same with me. All my sessions run over time pretty much. But I have to say that it was when you're on this road, family, friends, whānau out there who are watching, listening, etc. When you can find, if you're on a path that you kind of feel like is right, it helps. What I've found is to look out for those that are maybe on a similar path or are maybe a few steps ahead. And that can just be all the difference, especially when you're struggling and you think you're doing everything right and things aren't showing up, or you're just not feeling successful in that. Sometimes it's good just to have a korero with like I said, someone who's a few steps ahead down the track, and
Mhm.
and I would definitely encourage everyone who's interested in this concept to definitely take advantage of Matt's very generous offer for his 45-minute clarity call, because I'll speak from personal experience and say that it was very, very beneficial for myself.
Yeah,
And
and it's very
yeah,
beneficial for me. Every one I do helps me find more clarity in myself and who I am and what I'm choosing to do, right? I get to, on those calls, I get to basically reinforce my core belief, which is I get paid by the universe for being me. And every time that I show up in service, it's no sacrifice. You know, it's not the fact that, oh, this person's not paying, therefore I'll only give them so much. It's like, I give them everything I've got, right? Because
yeah.
that's my joy. And in being that joyful expression of self is how the universe basically lines me up energetically with my best outcome.
You know, and when you say that's interesting, because, you know, I'm the same. Like when I talk to my clients, you know, I can tend to speak quite fast and give a lot of information, and and I just want to give them as much as they can take, but I also want it to be effective in a sense too. And now
Mhm.
you also mentioned earlier on that, it's not an expectation that we expect people to remember all the information, that because changes are happening when you're receiving information, even subconsciously in that
Mhm.
too. But what I found is that the more I talk, like doing these interviews with people that I'd like to chat with, and that it's helping me refine my speech craft and hone my crafts. I'll put it like that even better, rather
Mhm.
than limited to simile speech. But the idea is that, you can learning how to, like for me anyway, like learning how to deliver a really, like just to be so open and say, somebody says, look, I really like what you've got to talk about, please. And I'm so grateful for those who want to listen. And I get paid for it, on occasion as well, which is just like, I just feel so blessed to be able to, I mean, the idea of just reading, experiencing, and doing my own practices, and then sharing experiences and being supportive to people. I mean, I don't know if there's anything else that I would like to do at this point, just at the stage of my life. I just love it so much. If I could
Mhm.
just carry on doing what I'm doing now, and
It will
and
evolve, Phil.
yeah,
Undoubtedly, it will evolve. No one
yeah.
stagnates in, oh, I found what I'm here to do and this is it. No one does,
No,
right?
no.
You get to that point and you start to feel a little bit comfortable in it, and the next step will appear for you to take. So, and at the same time, don't go looking for what the next step is until it appears. So it's accepting what we've got and then trusting that it'll always keep expanding. We live in an infinitely expansive universe that's continually to expand. There's no finish to this process. There's no completion on anything. There's no limit to how happy we can be, how joyful we'll be, or how hateful we can be, because everything is always expanding. The opportunity is there for more of anything, and that's awesome, right? So while our mind might get a bit shitty with that idea because we love the idea, I've ticked that off. There's no ticking off of anything, because if you think you've ticked something off, you could go back and have a look at it now, because the goalposts have moved, right? There's more to do there. So get over it, right? Get over this idea that we need to complete anything before we're good, right, proper enough, or worthy to get the reward. The reward is the process. It's not what happens after we've done it.
No, and that's a really beautiful comment right there, because I found that myself. Looking towards certain. I mean, yes, I have some goals that I would like to
Mm-hmm.
reach, but I kind of have this metaphor that I work with, and that is I have I'm looking off into the distance. I'm seeing this kind of amorphous blob, or some sort of like hazy sort of figurine in the distance. That's kind of what my goal is. And
Mm-hmm.
as I move closer, it changes and it stays fluid.
Mm-hmm.
But I still keep heading towards it, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't really get there as such, but I get
Mm-hmm.
a better idea of what I'm aiming for, and it changes. And since I've been open to the idea that things change, it's taken a crap load of pressure off. Like it has to be this outcome. It's
Mm-hmm.
because as my consciousness develops and my awareness it becomes more expansive, and that I realized that the eyes I was looking through, the lenses I was that I've created, they change, and so what I'm looking at changes, and how I feel about what I'm looking at and what I'm seeking changes, and
Mm-hmm.
it's such a wonderful adventure, and such a far more pleasant way of sort of living life as well, rather than
Mm-hmm.
having to have fixed expectations on things, because it becomes more playful in my view.
Exactly. Exactly. And the joy is in the moment of experience along the way, right? That's it. Everything we keep going in a certain direction, but there is no expectation that we ever get there, and there's no need to ever get there. It's not that we're trying to get there. It's we're using that focal point to keep us going in a direction where we're enjoying the experience along the way of going in that direction. If we were to take that away and allow ourselves to go around in circles or to go off in other directions, we potentially wouldn't enjoy that process as much, because the alignment wouldn't be there, it wouldn't resonate with us so much. So this idea of having goals and intentions that keep us going in a certain direction works for us, because it keeps us having experiences that resonate with where our higher self or our soul self is really passionate. That's all we're here to do. We're just here to explore what we're passionate about.
And what a wonderful place maybe to sort of end the
before we keep going forever.
yeah. I could definitely do that, but that's a good figure. And so I just want to encourage people to go and check out the website, which is floating along down the bottom here.
Yeah.
And I want to say a massively huge thank you to my good brother Matt and ManTarA, and for all the wisdom and the support, because I've certainly made use of ManTarA's wisdom in the past, and it's certainly been helpful and beneficial for me. And I fully encourage anyone out there who resonates with what's being said here to reach out and take advantage of Matt's and ManTarA's especially generous offer there as well. So thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, Phil. Awesome. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on any such platform, and so thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to basically redefine what I'm here to do. That's it, right? It's being the expression of it now in this moment. It was joyful exchange, and well done to you for stepping up and offering this service to your tribe. So for Phil's tribe, I would encourage you all to reach out to Phil and see how he can serve you some more, because he's walking his talk, right? And if you're attracted to what he does and to the vibration that he bees, then there's value there in you getting closer to him. So it's not about hierarchy. A lot of people think, oh, but Phil still hasn't really succeeded. Success, right? It's a load of crap. It's there's nothing wrong with paying someone to have an experience with them that's beneficial to both parties. You always receive benefit from the investment that you're willing to make. And I'm not saying that you have to invest a huge sum of money or anything like that, because investment is really very relative to your own circumstance. But ultimately, making investment in yourself, whether it's time, money, or any other resource, is always going to bear dividends, especially when you're doing it with a empowered intention. Not spending money on yourself because you need to fix something, but spending money on yourself because you are worth it. Right? Each and every one of you, you're worth investing in your own personal growth. And you can do that in so many different ways. And you don't need to seek out the biggest, the brightest, and the most bold of facilitators who are charging an absolute fortune and have all of the testimonials under the sun to actually benefit. Sometimes it's the simplest things with the more aligned people who you just feel good around, rather than people who have proved themselves through facilitating for thousands of people already. So don't deny yourself the opportunity to work with a brother who's close to you. That's my advice, right?
Yeah, and oh man, I just wanted to share on that too. Is that what I've found is that just speaking more about these topics and things like that has have brought people into my sphere that I would not expect, and I just really enjoy having conversations with people, especially things if they're in a spot where they're feeling a bit stuck, and sometimes I've got just the right thing, just like when I reach out to people and maybe I'm feeling a bit stuck and they've got just the right thing too. And regardless of any kind of exchange that happens, it's just beautiful to experience something, because it helps me to sort of feel more encouraged and more confident in myself.
Yeah.
And purposeful. That's a huge one, man. Like, going, what, I feel right in this space. It feels right. And the braveness, the bravery, the courage to actually announce and introduce myself has paid off in the sense that I'm able to speak more freely. There's less resistance, and it's allowing me to sort of, I guess, radiate, and more people are becoming aware of what's available to them. And I've got to say too that having some skin in the game, so to speak, with your own personal development means you can jump from freebie to freebie, But it's when you go, you know what, I'm gonna put the money where the mouth is, or
Yep.
you know, and I heard that from Eben Alexander, for those that are aware of him, and he talks about having skin in the game, because then you've got something, you know, that can I don't know, it just means you're
keeps you more accountable. Right, and it leverages what you get, because you're willing to go through it rather than just go, oh, that's a little bit too hard for now, and then just put it aside. Because if it was free, it was like, oh well. But if you've actually invested in it, then you want to get your money's worth, so you're much more likely to go through with what's needed to be done. And the point is, no transformation is magical in that, you know, someone just fixes you. So many people I know, because I've come from the telesummit world, where people just jump from healer to healer to healer to healer, wanting to find that person who just magically fixes their problems, and it's just never going to happen, right? It's a process of transformation, and transformation is not comfortable. You have to face your shadows. You have to face your internal resistances, and skin in the game is a way of actually staying dedicated to a path. You know, I learned a long time ago that it doesn't matter which path you stick to, but sticking to a path will lead you much further than jumping from path to path to path to path to path, looking for the path that doesn't have any thorns on it, right? And as soon as you come to a thorn, then you want to swap paths, and you have to go back to the start of each path. And if you were just prepared to be a little bit careful and not actually step on the thorns and keep going down the same path, you're much more likely to get to the beach, right? But if you keep trying to avoid it and go back to the car park and choose another path every time you come to a thorn, then you know, might as well just get back in your car, right? You're just not going to get to the beach.
That's really great, because, you know, I have my own similar sort of understanding of that, and I say to people, look, you know, a flat straight road isn't going to give you the work of, like, you know, you'll see everything ahead, and so it'll be too obvious. But when there's corners, when there's a hill to climb, when you get to the top of the hill, there's going to be a vista there that you didn't get to experience otherwise, you know. And you know, this is the beauty of I guess of a little bit of challenges and things like that, because you're right, if we keep turning back, then we won't get the value that the thorns offer, you know, because there is something to be gained from these experiences.
Developing the mindfulness to step past the thorns, right? If you just want to plow ahead and be mindless in the world, then either you're going to walk on thorns, or you're going to have to stick to a very well-worn path that's going to lead you nowhere exciting. Right? Yeah. Cool. Okay, Phil. We better stop.
We better. Otherwise, all right. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Matt ManTarA.
Much love, my friends.
Much love to everybody. Absolutely. And I just want to say, guys, this will be going up on YouTube this afternoon, and I'll share it around so you can all watch at your own pace. Thank you so much, everyone. This is Thread the Threshold with Phil Rice. You've been always as wonderful, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you. See you later. Bye.